All right, we are live. Make sure you subscribe for another House of the Dragons. I don't know. I got to get it right. I know it's House of the Dragon now. There's a singular dragon by the end of the series, and I'm gonna get it right. We're gonna watch it happen. We're gonna experience it together. So make sure you subscribe so you see these recaps, these rants, these whatever you want to call them. I watch this show and I get excited. And I want to talk about it. By the way, people out there, confirm with me that this sound is good, because I don't have any way to check on my end, and just that we're live and everything's beautiful. See, up here it just says that we just went live. YouTube, you're going fucking crazy right now. Subscribe. I already went through the spiel. Subscribe. I don't want to go through it again. Make sure you're here for more conversations, more talk, and more House of the Dragon. I have producer Ken to the side. You wanna you wanna hop in?
Hey, everybody.
First time ever. First time ever. So very excited. We have some producer notes, so I had to let her get involved here, obviously, with her excellent notes that she gave me. And we want to talk about House of the Dragon. I'm excited to get into it. So this episode began with, if you don't remember, we had the showdown of the two twins in the last episode, and that was how it ended. The one twin that successfully killed the other twin committed seppuku after killing his brother because he was just so sad about that. But he did protect the queen. And we figure out that in this episode, by the way, something I want to highlight because I was really hard on the whore last episode. I went hard on the whore last episode. She actually did she did warn them. I was wondering why they had that moment where they show her notice the guy, the one Eric, showing up. And then she turns around and she's like, fuck that boat, I'm going to go tell. So yeah, I was wondering what was going to end up happening there. Why did they show that? And then it doesn't show her actually intervene. In this episode, it's confirmed she did do what she's supposed to do. She even tries to leverage that, which we'll get into later. Very important part of the episode. But yeah, they throw both the Erics in the same hole. Nice and simple. They didn't feel like it was necessary to dig two holes for these distinguished gentlemen. And they threw them both in one hole. They thought that's what they would have wanted, I guess. How did you feel about that, Ken, by the way? Just getting thrown in the ditch with your sibling that just killed you.
They were twins. They were roommates.
Yeah.
I feel like
roommates.
In any other circumstance, if they hadn't been at odds, they still loved each other. They still had the bond. Yeah. And one was, I think it was Eric with an E. He was devastated to see his brother commit such treason.
Yeah.
So I believe that in every other circumstance, it probably would have been a sentimental thing to be buried together. But in this case, one sullies the other.
Well, it was mutual, I think, devastation by both of them, because the brother that was sad that he broke his oath, quote unquote, the other, they both felt justified in their reasoning, which is, I think, a lot of like the parallels in some of these stories that we get to see this season are these kind of like people seeing through their own perspective that they're justified in doing these, whether they be heinous things or whether they just be like moves for the throne. Like, so for example, once again, I won't spoil it, but we see Damon get into some stuff later where he's justified in his own mind to try to seize this birthright or whatever he feels like he was passed up on. You have Alicent, who she comes to head later with the perception that she had on events, where she feels like she's completely justified because on his deathbed, Viserys tells her, confides in her on his last words or whatever the fuck, like, hey, Aegon needs to be the guy. They all have this warped perspective that none of it is fully the truth, I guess, except maybe like Rhaenyra, you might say. I don't know. There might even be some blind spots for her, but I think that's a lot of the story, and these two brothers kind of like put a bow on that in a way. And you even see, by the way, the next scene after you go from the brothers being just tossed in a dish together to save some time in manpower, you see the like neighbors, the two neighboring families or whatever. What's the battle called?
The battle at the
okay. Yeah, so you get right into that and you see like they show the war, so they show you them arguing and going back and forth and basically like, fuck you, we're gonna go to war now, because one side backs Rhaenyra, the other side backs Alicent and Aegon and all that. So they end up saying fuck you and then separating, and then immediately you see the like flash forward to the entire field is covered. Like, I mean, I can't even honestly describe it. It's such a crazy thing. I want to actually see if maybe I could pull up some stills. Which actually, no, I can't for the software. Never mind. I'll have to use when we get back to doing the StreamYard. I might be able to incorporate that into the show, just so you guys know. I do want to incorporate some stills. I've had some people tell me that'd be nice when they watch this, but and this would be the perfect instance because I'm telling you, the body is covered. Any kind of like battle scene you've seen in any movie, film, whatever, where they've shown casualties on the battlefield. This might be the most ever for me, honestly. Like it's up there.
They took it upon themselves to start the war. No one asked for that.
Not that level, no.
The battle had been long going. I know that they had been at odds for generations. Honestly, they were fighting their grandfather's battle.
Yeah. And they touch on that a little bit, that these two families have hated each other and basically were looking for a reason to go into like some all-out war. But when you see the amount of resources and people and all that end up dying based off this little, and you even see basically the argument. It's so silly, the argument between these two people that are part of these houses that really starts it
over rocks.
Okay, that's thank you.
The dividing line.
Thank you.
The two sections, and they are both declared to opposite houses, and in that process one person moved the stones, and that was the offense. How dare you move the border between
the stone border
across the river that we're both sharing,
and nobody lives there. We just walk here sometimes and run into each other.
Open field.
It's a complete open field, big enough for there to be 100,000 dead bodies in it, just so everybody knows. Maybe not that many. I don't know.
40,000.
Oh, they said.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that.
In the after, they said if they came together under one banner, they would equal together 40,000.
Okay. So that's not necessarily how many people were on the battlefield, unless they killed every single. But
exactly.
Either way, but that gives us an idea. It's a huge chunk, and that's why 100,000 was hyperbole. That's why I want to be clear. Mm-hmm. It wasn't quite to that extent, but it was incredible. And that's how we're starting off the episode. We're seeing that, and that battle, by the way, comes up several times because there's a huge, basically both warring factions between the High Towers and then Rhaenyra and them. They're kind of like, we have to get the Riverlands under control in this episode. They're like this. These are two of the families in the Riverlands that are going back and forth and being assholes and making it chaotic. And then just in general, they mention, and this has been mentioned in Game of Thrones as well, because some of the stuff that happens in this was mentioned in Game of Thrones as far as like how important Harrenhal is as like a stronghold in any kind of conflict.
It's the largest of the castles within the
of the entire exactly. And then on top of that, it being in the Riverlands, which they're saying is like this is one of the most important places to have control of in the conflict. And another thing to mention is it's something that they've made really apparent through just kind of like talking about the geography of Westeros. They've made it really clear that they're not that far from each other as far as like Dragonstone and King's Landing. They're like, there's a bay that separates us.
Yeah, it's like a couple hour flight.
On Dragon. So it's like, and even then we've seen this season a few times, one of them say, hey, go fly down there and see what's going on. And then
pop up,
literally.
Yeah,
and in this episode, we're seeing Kristen Cole again be just disgusting and a fucking sleazeball. He's a part of the court. You get to see Aegon in his court, and it's just all over the place. This is first episode after he fired his grandfather. He fired Pop. We don't see Pop in this episode at all, by the way.
No, he has left.
He
left the scene. He knew better. He's no longer safe.
Yeah, they told him to go somewhere, and I think he said he was going to Old Town or something.
No, she advised against it. She said to go somewhere else.
Yeah, but I feel like he was like, fuck that. I thought she advised to go somewhere. Then he's like, no, fuck that. I'm going.
The place you just mentioned was the place that.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So so you see that court now without Otto Hightower's presence, and it's all over the place. People are kind of bickering, even having side conversations, just really shitty comments and not veiled comments. You would always kind of have the passive aggressive shit going on in those meetings, but it's definitely to a whole nother level. And you see Aegon also feeling incompetent in this episode after his son died. And you see that several times where he's talking about going to battle himself on a dragon. And that's something that ends up coming in heavy towards the end of the episode, which we can kind of get into even that part real quick, just because I don't think we have to spend too much time on it because it leads into something that we're going to talk about later. I want to mention that Daemon is not there in this episode at all, as far as like he's out and about. And then you end up seeing him land in Harrenhal later on, which
well, this is the first big small conflict big small council meeting
Yeah.
after Otto has been let go. And in this meeting, the biggest points are that unfortunately Sir Kristen Cole has failed in his mission to murder Rhaenyra. And
Oh yeah, the
that
Eric twins.
the Eric
That's
twins
that.
comes up, the battle, and they declare, well, this is war, even though they say they've lost so many people, it can't possibly be war other
Mhm.
than the fighting, you know.
Mhm.
So this is an important meeting. You
Yeah,
know, we're
definitely.
talking about failures and things that we need to do to take the next steps. What are we going to do now to further our point? We need
Sure.
to take as much land as we can. Not being able to go by river, they are forced to now travel.
There's also
by land on horseback.
There's also a moment that I thought was interesting where Alicent kind of tries to step in and reel Aegon back a little bit. I want to say is the context, but
Otto's
either
not
way,
there.
yeah,
There's
he's
no
not
one.
there, so they completely disregard what she says in that moment, and which was interesting because if you remember. I don't remember if it was episode 1 of this season, but they have that conversation where she tells Otto, she says, "If you undermine me now, they won't listen to me." Now she is his most valuable ally, I guess I would say, in those rooms. So it's like now that he did kind of undermine her, there's this kind of crisis of. I don't know. I guess confidence. He doesn't have confidence in his mom. He puts all this fucking unrealistic confidence in Kristen Cole somehow.
He's relying on him at this point, and he is not political at all.
Yeah, that's a great point because he's basically saying we need to march up there with a small group. He's bringing a group himself, Kristen Cole. So the hand now is going to be leaving the kingdom. So that's another layer. Now he doesn't even have a hand in the kingdom with him. And he had a shitty one either way, so it doesn't really hurt him that bad. But still, like he should have a good one. If it was Pop, then Pop would have never been fucking leading these guys to Dragonstone or whatever.
The conversation of should the king himself go into battle pops up. And his advice, obviously, I mean, very obviously, you shouldn't do that.
Does anybody? I mean, there's some people that are not like heavy. They don't have like a heavy objection, but I don't know if there's anybody that is really like, "Hey, buddy, great idea."
No, not one single person.
Okay,
for that, everyone vetoed that idea, but he still tried to do it anyway. So you can tell that he is into defiance. He wants to do whatever he shouldn't do in every situation.
Well, and that whole like him feeling kind of incompetent as a leader or maybe even a protector is shown several times throughout this episode, I think. So I mean, that's a big one where it's like, hey, I'm gonna go out there myself. But there's like where he's trying to crack down on his Kingsguard at this point, actually in the episode, I believe. He has the people in there and they're talking about basically fucking whores, and he's like, we're not gonna fuck whores anymore because you guys are celibate. And they're like, yeah, because they don't even respect him at this point. But he's peeping all of this. Now that's becoming a problem for him. That people are buddy with him, and he's like, oh yeah, no, we're still gonna do that. And he's like, fucking stop.
As powerful and as an authority figure.
Sure, definitely. And the whole like him having the namesake of Aegon the Conqueror comes up several times and is kind of highlighted, I think. But definitely him having that kind of insecurity, I think, is going to be one of the biggest points. You see that with his brother, later on. We'll get into that conversation, but that kind of he becomes it more apparent that he's kind of jealous or threatened by Aemon in a way throughout this episode, I think. Aemon. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that before. I'm about to move on.
His relationship with Aemon is definitely very complex. The fact that he wasn't at the small council meeting definitely shows that there's a lot of different things going on. You've seen a lot in the last episode as well that we know where Aemon is going when he's not there. So we know that if he's not there maybe he's going through like something internally, some emotional turmoil. There's a reason
he's hanging out with the whore.
Yeah, otherwise
that treats him like he's a baby.
It's his duty. I mean, it's his point. It's his family. Why wouldn't he be at the small council meeting? And I think,
but he wasn't at this one. Wasn't he at the end of the table?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, I feel like he might have said something at the end, maybe, but that's fine.
Have to double check
that. But I could be wrong on that. But no, that is fair though. He's definitely not as involved, and there's several times where there's like I said, that conversation happens later where Aegon is defensive when Aemon's brought up and like, hey, I'm not going to let him rule my shit while I'm not here.
Yeah,
but we'll get into it. Yeah, that's a pain point. But I wanted to get into the conversation with the whore as well takes place, which it becomes apparent like, hey, I did tell somebody about that guy coming to kill you, so now you should, make me a part of your court. It's becoming apparent how easy it is to get on one of these courts in this Kristen Cole did it. Now this whore did it. Yeah, just by doing the fucking right thing. She realized somebody was
immediately leans into Visaria and starts asking her over and over again, "What would you do? How would you handle
that is
this?"
true.
And then when she tells her, "Honestly, I would just kill everybody who did anything."
Yo,
against
Michael, what's up,
me,"
man?
she says, "Well, that's not an option. Give me Plan B." Gives
Yeah.
her Plan B. Says, "Well, that part of that doesn't work. Give me Plan C." And she still has answers for her. So
That's true.
She's earned
Well-
her place at this point in my eyes.
Well, and I think one thing that's important to point out is she's sending a lot of people away. You know, in this episode, she's sending
For safety.
yeah, who was the Renea or something or whatever. She's sending her away so she could take care of her children. Reina, thank you. Yeah, she's sending her away and sending I think Pintos or something like that. So they're going to go across the sea even. So I mean, I think that now her circle is getting smaller, and when you do see her circle in her small council, you see like they're undermining her. Honestly, directly to her face. They're telling her like, "Hey, you should go. Like, you should go be with your kids, basically, and we'll run the war."
Go be a mom.
And part of this is, by the way, because she's having some restraint, which is something I think we've seen consistently from her character throughout the season, which has highlighted her as a protagonist. As I've said, any moment that they've had for her to really like lash out and be like just crazy, you know, which they kind of painted her as in the first one. That's why her and Daemon were kind of attracted to one another, because they were like old school Targaryens and like blood and fire, whatever the fuck. So she's shown a lot in this season, a lot of growth where she's been willing to not act hastily. Yeah, and like you said, like just not act emotionally. And that's kind of what these guys want. They want to go to war. They're like, fuck this shit. Let's just go to all out war. You have dragons. Everybody that doesn't have dragons tells these people that have dragons, like, hey, you have dragons. Just go blow everything up. And thankfully, there's at least one person around. I'm surprised Aegon really hasn't done this yet, which I guess he's the closest to doing it. He's probably going to be the first person we're going to see really go all out and use dragons.
They don't really use their dragons in general. I feel they keep them down the caves. They don't ride them just because.
Well, we talked about them. We talked about this on the last episode, on the last review. I think because in a way these dragons are supposed to like symbolize in a way, like nuclear weapons. In a way.
Fear of them.
Yes, it's like, and once you use them, the other people will use them on you as well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's really there's a strong parallel being drawn there between like nuclear weapons and basically like you said, also just having them is power in itself. But then once you use them, now the fact that there's fear of the other people use fucking Daenerys in Game of Thrones, she didn't have that threat. She had all the dragons in the fucking world. You know what I'm saying? So that's why she was so scary. People were like, kill her as a fucking kid. They were right. They were actually right on that. But in this series, you have the other side does have dragons. But Aegon in this episode is flirting with the idea of taking his dragon out. Yeah. And like, I'm gonna.
Should I go to war myself? Should I fly out?
Yeah.
And meet Sir Kristen Cole?
And I mean, then he's right. Like you have Bela, and you see her later, and she's kind of like patrolling her area. But that's the most that the dragons are really doing. They're not going out and like doing offensive attacks on, whatever the other place's stronghold. Yeah. So you do see Bela, though, later, where you see Sir Kristen. They get over to the Riverlands. And you also, I should say that you see what was his name? Gawain?
Yes.
Yeah, Sir Gawain. So that's Alicent's brother. He's going to go along with Sir Cole, and he's already kind of like, you're a fucking scumbag. If Alicent hasn't told him. But he doesn't like that he got his dad fired. That's something he's very clear about. Like I said, he's Alicent's dad, so Otto/Pop is his actual dad. So he does make that clear, like how basically he's like just throwing fucking mean girl shade at him, and like, how the fuck did you get this position? Yeah. And my dad was he was a hand for fucking 30 years. How did you get his job? And he's right. He is right 100%, because we all hate Kristen Cole here. He's a cunt.
And she told him to go to the Tyrells, is where she suggested.
For Kristen Cole.
No, for her father, Otto.
Oh, gotcha.
Conversation about where he should flee to for safety.
Yeah,
He said, "I'm gonna go the Highlands," wherever you said, and then she's like, "No, you should go to the Tyrells."
Yeah. No, that sounds familiar. Okay, so thank you for that. Good shit. So yeah, but you have Gawain. He's gonna accompany Kristen Cole on his mission. So there's going to be some kind of like weird friction there between them. He doesn't like Kristen Cole. He's upset at him right now. And by the way, Kristen Cole and Allison, they have like a weird exchange where he's asking for her to give him a prayer or give him favor. She gives him a handkerchief begrudgingly. Like, I don't know.
You see where it came from?
No.
She pulled it straight out of her tatas.
Oh yeah. But
Straight
so
out the middle.
so what's the point of all this? You
I
understand?
think he was looking for a gesture to show that she still had love for him, and that he kind of like professes a small token of his appreciation of her. And I forget exactly what he said.
That's how you took it as.
Oh, 100%.
I took it as all of it was just him being like weird and fucking like.
He was like, no, you have I'm gonna leave right now, but you still have my heart is here with you. Like, he said something like that, and then he basically asked her for like a gesture or a sign that she was on the same page, and she whips it out and gives it to him, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna sniff this later tonight.
Is that that seems like a gesture? I would take that as a positive gesture.
Yes,
Is it?
Exactly. Like,
oh, okay,
like,
it is.
Yes, like, yes, I still care for you,
okay.
though I can't, like, you know.
Fucking love back in the day was weird because I took that as a very tense, mean conversation.
No, yeah, she was trying to be a certain way, and I think a lot of things were coming to a head.
I didn't take that she got broke down at all.
Oh no, her being upset over the Eric situation, and then her being undermined at council, and then him saying what he wants to do and no one listening to her. I think all of it came to a head, and she was so mad. By the time he was ready to leave, she's like, "Good, leave." But then he says this little like token of like, "Well, you know, actually." I still kind of dig you. Like, are you still into me too? If I come back, are you gonna still, you know, be loving me? And she's like,
yeah, but of course he feels that way.
Here's my
of course he feels that way.
You know, here's my thing, my token towards you that you can take with you. But you know, Sir Gawain, he saw that, and it was a little like moment where they look over and he's on the horse, like, what on earth are they doing? Like, obviously, it's almost like everyone in court has to know at this point that they're sleeping together, and she has so much guilt over that, and because of the night where Jacaerys was brutally
murdered. Well, but that made no sense either way. That's something we're taking a big issue with that with the series. The fact there was literally nobody even on that fucking floor to
exactly where was anybody?
Like, nobody.
She ends up having a conversation with her daughter, though, Helena.
Oh, yeah.
They have a moment together where she, you know, I don't know if, not to be rude, but I don't know if she's like autistic or something strange.
Yeah, she is a little like detached.
The way she speaks is
but it's because she has that fucking, she sees the future and shit.
I don't know, but she says, oh, I grieve for my child, but I feel like I shouldn't, or I'm not allowed to. And Allison tells her that grief is a symptom of sadness in general, is a symptom of motherhood, and that if anyone's allowed to be sad, it's her.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a quiet moment, and she turns around and tells her mom that she forgives her.
That was huge.
And that was huge because, like, a way you can tell.
Well, and also, like, relief. Well, no, and then also it tells you that she blamed her in a way, because I mean, in order to forgive her, she's saying like, you're responsible. So she's kind of like,
I don't know if she has emotions like that.
She's affirming that.
Like that as a character. Like, I don't
she
think
does
she
seem
sits
emotionless
there and is blaming anybody. I don't. Yeah, she seems more practical and factual of what is the truth. What are things?
I don't know if it's like that because she's so fucked up with the visions and stuff like that. I think her brain is a little scrambled eggs. And
something's going on up there. But yeah, when she forgave
that
Allison,
was I actually didn't have that in the notes, so I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like overall she carries so. I mean, you saw obviously it wasn't enough because she still got with him again multiple times after the incident happens. But she does try to bring it up in the last episode to Helena, and she tries to, like, they talk about something, and then she suddenly quips over to Helena about what you saw that night, and Helena cuts her off clean and is like, "We're not talking about this right now." And
That's true.
And then they move on. So she never got that. Like, we never even got to have a conversation about it. It's looming. I don't think she wants to bring it up again. She's like, hopefully you just don't think about it. You know what I mean? But
she's definitely, she's moving on. She even says, I don't know, I think it is in that conversation where she says, like, I'm sad about my grandson dying, but I'm more worried for you. So she's already kind of like compartmentalized, I think, like the fact, which, I mean, you have to, if somebody sneaks in and fucking cuts off a family member's head, you got to find a way to keep living after that one. That's pretty fucking wild.
No one seems sad enough for what happened other than the parents. Other than Aegon, we saw moments of him really grieving, and then Helena. For
sure. Yeah, everybody else has used it, I think, as more of like a political opportunity.
It's been a move,
Yeah, but so I want to get to Harrenhal, by the way. Harrenhal, what do you think? She really thinks Kristen Cole loves Allison. Um, you know what? Yeah, the Kristen Cole thing. I don't know if I'm full on. He's a complete. I don't know if he's smart enough to be that manipulative though. He might love Allison in like a toxic way. So I mean, I could see it being something like that, being more of a toxic thing. Um, Brother, not disturbing the stream, added to the stream. No, we're having a great time. I love that somebody's on here bouncing to bounce some ideas off of. Also, cover some blind spots for me because that would have been fucking horrible if I forgot about that conversation though, because that conversation was definitely going to be paramount moving forward with Allison's character more than anything. But I think Michael, I think you make a fair point as far as like, you know, love is a weird word. I think with Kristen Cole, the thing that I'm more confused about, I thought at that point, Allison was supposed to be more saying like, "Hey, I'm done with you. Fuck you." Even her taking it out, I didn't take that as like, "Hey, take this as a fucking sign that I have any kind of feelings for you." I thought she at this point is kind of like full on fuck you. It really has been kind of like full on fuck you, and only has really been with him out of like loneliness and weakness and shit like that, like moments of opportunities guarding her door, and she's like, come in here and do what they do. Harrenhal though is important. I want to make sure I talk about Harrenhal, and I do not want to forget about this. This was very interesting to me. This kind of siege of a castle is very interesting. So you see Damon, he's going to pull up on Harrenhal in his dragon. Like I said, he's been out of the way for the whole episode. And you finally see him. He's on a dragon, and he is freaking everybody out. People see it. They're running. They're like, fuck, dragon's coming and all that. Dragon has already, by the way, we've already seen a few, maybe not in this episode. Okay, so later on we'll get to that. I don't want to be out of order. So a dragon comes up and you see some people's reaction to it again. And I think how they play with that, like, oh shit, there's a dragon in the area vibe in this episode is really funny. So yeah, he's pulling up on Harrenhal with the dragon, and he lands, walks in there. It is a shithole, leaks everywhere, a complete dump. But like we talked about it earlier, one of the most important strongholds of the entire realm, especially when you're in an all-out war. So yeah, he pulls up there. He just walks in there. He kills one guard, or I don't even know if he kills him. Yeah, he like punches him in the face. Walks in like this great hall where they're just there's like 5 people in there maybe total, chilling, eating dinner, hanging out. And he's just like, I claim Harrenhal, and they're like, fucking, they're like, cool, you did it. Like, you did it. We were waiting on the first one to come through and fucking just do that. So yeah, they basically surrender. I guess it's the most chill surrender ever. It's interesting to see that maybe this is how this shit could happen. Like, I think we haven't really seen anything play out like that yet. Is my only point as far as like a castle being so ran down and so downtrodden that they can't even. I mean, there's no defense. There's literally no defense. He land. I don't even know if like the people in the Great Hall that were eating the dinner, if they knew there was a dragon there.
No,
because there was one guard. There's one guard that could have possibly notified him, and he was surprised when he was walking through the halls and just walks up and punches him. He's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, so he didn't know, even though the people in the tower saw the dragon.
Exactly.
They had no bell. There was no fire lit.
There's no bell.
It totally took him like 20 minutes to get down there.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything. By the time that happened, he was already down there himself.
That conversation, though, I want to make sure to mention because this is kind of a smaller part. Well, it's a huge part, but it's it kind of gets mentioned at the end of the conversation past Damon capturing the castle. You have Simon, who is in charge of Harrenhal right now, because remember the crippled dude, Lars.
It's his uncle.
Yeah, it's his uncle, and he's in King's Landing scheming. He's not in the actual like family home. So when Damon pulls up and takes it, Damon even questions him, like, "What about fucking Lars?" And then Simon's like, "Yeah, we don't trust him. Do you see how wet it is around here?
Yeah.
This bitch isn't catching on fire spontaneously."
No way that happened accidentally.
He's like, "Dude, we have like." He says some crazy thing about like basically not being able to get something lit. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they're just basically saying like this place, there's no way that happens accidentally. And both of the people in charge, and then you see where he's at. They're just like, we know he's a scumbag. We don't claim him. We're happy to say fuck him and happy to have you be the fucking lord here for a little bit. And he's loving it. But you do have one of his I don't think they introduce exactly who the character is, but there's a woman there, might be his Simon's daughter or something, or maybe it's just a woman who's working there or whatever. But
if she's there at all.
if she's there, actually, that's a great
could
point.
literally not even be a person because when
Yeah.
she walks in after he pledges.
See, now I gotta go back and watch it because you said that shit.
It's during the time where Simon Strong's on his knee in front of Damon and he's pledging his fealty and saying he's gonna let him take over and your grace, your grace, your grace.
Mhm.
And in that moment, she just like enters into the scene that's already happening from the side, stands there, says nothing. No one looks at her. If you watch the scene, no one looks to
I gotta
the
go back
side.
and check it. I never even considered it wasn't a real person. But when you mention her later, yeah, he is like roaming around the castle, and she's standing off somewhere randomly, and she sees him kind of out of it, and she's just like, "You're gonna die here." Yeah. So she's creepy as fuck.
Well, he's sleeping.
And he just takes it. He's just like,
he's sleepwalking. So then he all of a sudden wakes up and she's standing there. So that would indicate maybe she's real, but maybe not real in the sense of a person, but an entity within the. Because what comes to his door?
Well, and think because of Helena, there are these like people that have some kind of, and also just previous, the Game of Thrones also used that as a indicator that magic exists in the world. So people that have these kind of like weird abilities or connections, that could be a thing. So yeah, with that character, I'm definitely curious about how that's going to end up playing out. He also insists, by the way, that everybody calls him Your Grace. That's a thing. So that also indicates to us that he's at least flirting with the idea. He's flirting with the idea of possibly seizing the Iron Throne for himself, and wants to be king. Now he may try to seize the throne and say, Rhaenyra, you could be my queen, but like I said, there's something like he's a king regent, I think they said. So that's just not good enough. That's not the same as like not having the regent part.
Yeah, and he kind of declares it.
They just need to get rid of that.
Simon and the couple of people who stayed at the table that that's the deal. He's gonna go for it, and then
he's gonna go for it.
So you don't like to see them comment on it because the scene just cuts.
Oh yeah, what the fuck do you think they said? They're like fucking great.
Great,
yeah.
Go for it.
Great. We'd vote for you. So either way, so from there you end up in this kind of place gets discussed a little bit. We hinted at it earlier. Rhaenyra is back at her small court, and they're talking about should they strike, so on and so forth. I think they're getting word at this point that Kristen Cole might be in the area. Yeah. I think they get word on that at this point.
Has returned and seen.
Oh, okay. Well, and then by the way, because we didn't really talk on that too much, or mention that actually. So that was an interesting scene. That's the other scene where you see like the there's dragons in the area. Sir Gawain, he's gonna go out and they're gonna go to an inn. They don't want to be in tents with these smelly motherfuckers in the woods. They're like, we want to go have fun and have fun, do what they do. So they're riding around nonchalant. Kristen Cole's like, get the fuck back, you ass. This is the one time Kristen Cole was right. And all of a sudden you see a dragon. They see a dragon way before I could see the dragon. I gotta say, these guys, the eyesight on these motherfuckers was amazing. Okay. So
shadow over the sun, something like that happened, and it made him look up, and he was facing that direction.
Nice. Well, they spotted it, and they end up having to get the fuck up out the area. They thankfully, I guess, depending on who you are, I wouldn't mind it if these characters got put in a blaze personally, but
she should have shot fire.
Yeah,
just coming up to the scene.
I thought, to be honest with you, I thought she was gonna they're gonna show once again, which they really dialed it back. I think on the aggressiveness of Rhaenyra's camp, because I thought she might just start catching shit on fire. Yeah, and I thought they might have to like basically deal with. Maybe they still get out of it and like work their way around the flames. But yeah, when they were hiding under the trees and they make that a thing where they're looking through the trees, I thought maybe she might just go, fuck it. I'm a fucking, I'm
She's not
catching
supposed to do that though.
I know. That's true.
Her job is to surveil and go around
That's true.
Landing and to do what she did, come back and tell them like, hey, I saw these people. Coming.
No, she nailed it. But if she could have caught them, do you think she would have just let them go, or she would have ate them? Or
it would have been a war move to murder Sir Kristen Cole to hand to the king.
Yeah, but why is he there?
Well, you know why he's there.
Exactly.
Trying to go forward.
I don't know if that's.
It still would be a move in war where it's like you've now killed.
I don't know about that. They already have fucking killed each other's kids, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I think maybe you can overlook the fucking asshole.
They care more about Sir Kristen Cole dying than they did about Jacaerys dying.
No.
Yes,
No,
he's the hand
no,
to the
stop
king.
it.
He's messing with the queen.
Plus, the king's opinion does matter. Like you can't just act like just because he's a fucking asshole and they mostly disregard his opinion. If he really wanted to be persistent on something, like even later on the episode, if he wants to go take the dragon and go start some shit, he can. He has to be convinced otherwise. You know what I mean? If he's not convinced, then he can do whatever the fuck he wants. But yeah, I don't know, but I think it's definitely interesting. They end up getting away though. I wish fucking she would have caught the forest on fire, but whatever. She ends up going back to Rhaenyra and tells her, and they now know that they're encroaching on them and they want to go to war. And this is the part that we hinted at earlier, where her small council, almost I'd say like 90% of the motherfuckers. No wonder she's taking applications from whores, and probably going to accept their application. And so yeah, they're all undermining her. Like 90% of them, they're like, yeah, you should go away. You're making a really interesting decision here to not go to war. Like usually it would be the opposite. It'd be like, oh hey, you're being emotional as a woman. They'd be like, get out of here, you're being emotional. She's literally not being emotional. They're still saying fuck you. So she's playing against whatever the fuck misogyny or whatever the fuck's going on in the court, but they really don't, for some reason, don't feel like she's fit to lead after, she really hasn't done that bad of a job, to be honest. The biggest fuck up, and that's the biggest fuck up was the little kid getting killed. And she didn't really say go kill the kid. I mean, I was hard on her. I do think that she was trying to act like she was completely not responsible at all for that.
She did say.
She did say son first son or whatever the fuck she said. Or maybe Damon said. But either way, you sent somebody over there with a mission. The fact it just kind of, you have some responsibility.
No, they changed it in the show. They said it was I think it's in wherever they got it from.
Yeah.
The whole option was a son first son. I think they changed it.
Well, definitely. Yeah, you're right. You're right on that. But Damon still says, I think that.
Damon takes her way too literally.
And they definitely, I know the fucking two killers say that maybe as like an Easter egg, like, hey, if you read the book, then you know this is kind of the thing.
Yeah. Well, the rat catcher literally at the time when they get told to go kill Jacaerys or Aemon, I should say, they even ask at that time, what do we do if we cannot find Aemon? And it does not show in the scene what Damon says. If anything, it's like it just gets quiet and he's just staring at them like
he's like, make a decision.
And
bitch.
then the next time you see him,
not on
climbing
me.
The steps to go into the castle.
I've been there. I've seen that move pulled many times at work. The whole not on me move. Yeah, that's what he did. Rhaenyra, let's see. Oh yeah, so she's basically telling her small court, she's like, do not commit treason right now. I will fuck everybody in this bitch up. If you guys are trying to send me away and get me Baker acted, it's not gonna work. I will fuck everybody up here. And also, by the way, this is the new hand to the queen. She's a whore. I don't know how she thinks they're going to take that decision, by the way, when she starts introducing the second woman on the fucking panel, and she has to be a whore for some reason. But I guess I will say for this, in these ladies' defense, I don't know if there was as many jobs for ladies back then. So, I mean, if you were going to ascend the social ranks, maybe like a whore was like one of your main options. That was like being a lawyer.
See, to me, it feels like she meets with her on the side in private by herself and asks her for like independent counsel. It's like a therapist.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know if she'll ever introduce her to the court or have her sit at the court or give public information to everyone, because everything she knows is like undercover. Everything she knows about King's Landing, she's asking her this question: what do you know about the interior staff? Because obviously she has reasons for why she's asking. But.
Exactly. Yeah, she's connected because she was a whore over there. I mean, honestly, but then also that's why I was saying earlier, maybe I'm underestimating the whole thing.
Well, she wants to, pick her brain to see, like,
exactly.
You know what's going on, you know the situation.
Well, and that's my point. I'm judging it in a modern sense. Like our whores today are not very industrious, I would think. Although at the same time, maybe you would say they were. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. So maybe honestly, whores might have always had a good, 2 cents to add. And maybe I'm just undervaluing that.
It's special.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not saying she's special.
She was going to marry Damon at one point. She's at least a little bit special.
I don't fucking agree with that. He killed his fucking first wife.
Okay.
That was just some shit he said to a whore when they were fucking.
We think he killed his other wife too now, so it's like.
By the way, Michael says, is war now absolutely inevitable, or will the showrunners try to spin it? You know what? We're almost to the end of this episode, and that I think is where that becomes pivotal. I'm interested in your opinion on that. We're about to get into that though. I did want to mention though before I don't want to just go over skip over this, but you have what was the guy's name in the fucking bar? Balon the fucking Brave or some shit.
It was
the bastard.
Bastard son.
Yeah, so he's a royal bastard. He's in this like underground pub. This is, by the way, after I remember how I mentioned that Aegon's like, hey, on the court, no more funnies. We're not doing any funny shit. You end up seeing him come through there. He went back on that 6 hours later. Once he clocked out as king for the day, he's like, fuck it, let's go to the horse.
Yeah, I'm not flying out to fight any battles.
I'm not fighting anybody.
I'm going to go to the horse.
Because Larys, by the way, convinces him otherwise. And I do want to say Larys doesn't convince him, but I guess ends up presenting enough value in what he's offering and his like wisdom that Aegon ends up saying, I want a Master of Whispers.
Yes.
So Viserys was like, no, that's
no
you should
drama.
be more transparent. Yeah, you should be a little bit more transparent than that. That's the crazy, sneaky fuck shit. The spies all around the kingdom and stuff like that. It's not going to bring any good, which you see why it's not going to bring any good, because like I said, when you step into the pub, you see the Balon, the brave guy, he's talking shit. He's like, no, Rhaenyra should be queen. This is in King's Landing, in I guess the king's favorite pub too. Rhaenyra should be queen, basically just kind of spreading some, I guess, dirty laundry. I don't know, is there anything like really important that he says? When he comes in, he's like, oh, hey, everything's cool. Let's get him a drink. So he's definitely he's two-faced with it.
Yeah, because I don't even think as much he wanted Rhaenyra to be queen as he felt like, because of how his line went, being the half brother of Daemon, that the rightful heir to the throne was like somebody like Viserys Targaryen or something. I forget the first name of it.
He thought somebody completely. Well, Viserys was the guy who died.
Yeah,
from fucking
I'm
leprosy.
not sure. I'll have to look up the name he said, but
yeah,
he said a specific name of somebody he felt should be king.
There might have been something more important there.
Yes,
I think we might have missed
that. And then walks in Aegon, and he shuts up real quick, and it's like.
So that might be important. I don't know if we can expect that guy to be in this more throughout the series or anything, or if he's going to have a really pivotal role going forward. But just based on his connection, I think he could be important going forward. Let's see, what else do we have to get into? We definitely got into Rhaenyra and Mysaria. Yeah.
Oh, Aegon going through the brothel and catching Aemon.
Oh yeah, that's actually like this is like the same kind of time.
Yeah, right after
exactly.
They
thank you. Okay, I almost forgot that.
They go to the brothel. You know how good night goes.
That would have been that would have been devastating if I forgot to mention this. This is very important.
Shots and some ass. That's what you need in life.
So they're in the pub, and then the night does progress, and then after they get a few drinks on them, they want to find a fine whore. So they're just going through, opening up tents, as I guess you do. If you're the king, I guess you could do that, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But it does seem like it's a little inappropriate. People might be, luckily he didn't open. Actually, no, people were getting blowies and shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people were getting there.
First ones to open.
Imagine you're sitting there just getting your knob gobbled, and the fucking king opens up.
He didn't seem to notice. Honestly.
He didn't give a shit. Yeah, no, it was a pretty, they were a pretty welcoming crowd there. But he ends up obviously opening up one of the tents. He sees his brother there cuddled, and he does look fucking crazy. And they've shown it a few times. That's just I think they just like that like scene or whatever. Like it does portray him in like a very like meek way, so they've shown that shot is why I say that several times of him like laying like a fucking baby with her. So I definitely think that is supposed to be hammering home something about Aemon's character, whether it be like mommy issues, which I think you've mentioned, and I think is definitely apparent here.
Mommy and daddy issues.
Aegon's even telling them like, dude, this is the same. He said this is the first whore you've ever had, and you still fucking lay with her. What are you doing? Get a new whore. I
forgotten about that until he said that. I'm like, no, you're right. I forgot this came up way before. This has been a trend since he was a teen.
Yeah, exactly. And he's so he basically just fucking shames them, but then he stands up, cock waving in the air. That's important. I feel like that was very important.
Yes.
He walks out, head held high, hands to the side, doesn't even cover his cock. And I mean, it's not an impressive cock, to be honest. It's not the cock that you just like wave around in the locker room. Like but he stood up in front of all of them, said, "Hey, take this whore. I actually don't even give a shit about her." So he had to have a show of strength, I think.
Yeah, his physicality is very unique. Like he is striking in like a vampiric way.
He is so skinny.
He's so skinny yet so muscular, and he's very lean with a bigger upper body. So it's like it's striking to look at all that. It's blinding.
Yeah, and very pasty. Exactly. That's a great point.
Was a body double, or do you think he He just went for it.
Who knows?
How do you body double?
I hope
that?
it wasn't a body
was
double.
Was it CG?
If it was a body double, that's a coward's way out. If you're gonna show cock in a fucking Game of Thrones, listen, it doesn't have to be your own, but if you get a body double, he needs to have a fucking knee slapper. I don't understand how you're fucking having the knee double, fucking have a ball tapper. You know what I'm saying? For God's sake. By the way, let me get these. Jade Spade said, "Sounds good. I got shoddy internet." Michael, yeah, Kristen is perpetually scorned, but hurt by Rhaenyra. Oh, we had a little conversation about, like, is he in love or not? Because he was like, Michael was just flabbergasted by the fact you think that Kristen Cole actually loves Allison, even LOL'd on you with that.
That's a good point. That he may not genuinely love her, but they've been together now. The timeline is weird, but they've been together now for so long. They're almost like dependent on each other. I think it's like a codependency.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. That's what I said when I was like, it might be more of like a toxic sort of
stupid. Maybe
dependency.
He thinks it's love. He doesn't know
I think that's possible. And then also, exactly, doesn't know anything else because he also may have felt like he loved Rhaenyra, and I mean, was that not love? I don't know.
He did think that for a while. That's weird.
It was weird shit. He was fucking a kid, fucking weirdo. Only thing that guy loves is betrayal, is what Michael said after that. So,
whatever's in his own best interest in the way of keeping himself alive and furthering his.
The only thing that does it for him.
I mean, we saw he doesn't love Allison. With Daemon.
Yeah.
So they obviously have something. Mm-hmm. They're trying to win the war at this point.
Trying to win the war. Jade Spade says he doesn't love Allison. She feels strongly about that, but we shall see as it unfolds. He'll definitely have.
He's using her.
He'll have opportunities to fuck her over, most definitely.
Why else?
But she already kind of has. Oh, and I did want to mention, just as a side note, just so it's mentioned here because we didn't say it. In Daemon's visions that he had, he saw Rhaenyra.
Yes.
So he saw Rhaenyra as a kid, and she was sewing up fucking Jaehaerys's dead. Yeah, Jaehaerys's head, and she's like, basically says like, I have to clean shit up after you or something. I think again or something, which is what she's doing essentially now. After he did that, now she has to make the right moves in order to not have a full war spill out. Which I think now we get into this is, I think, the biggest part of the episode, and this is the end, where Rhaenyra shows that I guess you would say once again restraint in the small council meeting, and she is really she's very determined to get to the bottom of basically what are they thinking in King's Landing. She questions whether Allison is really all in on the war. She talks to Mysaria and basically says like, can you get me into her? She opens up Allison's message that Allison had sent her too, finally. And then based off that message, I think pushes her the rest of the way to go ahead and see if they can come to some kind of understanding. We don't really get too deep into like what the understanding would look like. That's where I'm kind of lost. I guess like what was Rhaenyra expecting? Was she expecting for her to get there and Allison to be able to say like, oh yeah, well you just take this shit over. You're right. That makes sense. I don't know, but we'll get into that. So she ends up like, hey, we need to get into Allison. We can't send her a message back because we're too far gone at this point. She'll think it's a trap or whatever. So she's like, you have to get me in there. Mysaria ends up sneaking her in as like a nun or whatever. Because this is the only period. And they did show us this already in the season, like when she goes and lights a candle when Luke died. And so this is like a time that she's alone. So she's alone in this cathedral type church area. And yeah, that's when Rhaenyra pulls up on her in full fucking hitman disguise and pulls out the knife and is basically like, hey, we're going to talk real quick. And they sit there and have a conversation about, basically where Allison's coming from, where some of the confusion or whatever could be possibly coming from. Because both of them are, like I said, everybody feels like they're justified in this. Allison is almost giving off this vibe, like, I'm horrified that you're going to war with me. This is what your dad wanted. And Rhaenyra's like, did he not fucking confirm for year after year after year that he wanted me to be the heir? So, and also, by the way, whenever you got what you got, he was a fucking damn near vegetable. And they do go over that. And they get to this point where they talk about, hey, what was his exact words? And at that point, and I want to get your opinion on this, do you think that Allison and Rhaenyra were 100% on, okay, this was a misunderstanding? I kind of think so. No. Okay, so just here, I'll go to you here in a second. I'll just lay out kind of my vibe on this. I think this was the moment like I said, after Rhaenyra explains it to her, and she's like, "Hey, Aegon." He's talking about Aegon the Conqueror from the Story of Ice and Fire, the prophecy, which we talked about in the last few episodes that we did reviews here. And as far as like the only person that had that prophecy was Rhaenyra, and that was and then passed from Viserys, and then she ended up passing it along to I think her son or something, sort of, and that's why we ended up talking about it, I think last week. But here, it's really interesting. I think they come to a full understanding. I'm curious to hear your opinion on that. But in the chat, let me know. But I think Alicent believes her. I think Alicent ends up like hearing that and saying, "Okay, I believe you." But she's like, "It's too far gone." And at first, I thought maybe it was like a pride thing. Like, no, I'm not going to go back on. I mean, just imagine you've gotten fucking people killed and just all of the just tragedy that's come from this to turn around and say, "Oh yeah, I misunderstood what he said." Like that's not good enough. You know what I mean? That's just not good enough. So part of me thought it was that, but like the more the conversation went on, it was. I kind of took it as more of like a tragic. We both know what it is, but it's out of my hands kind of thing. It's too late because the king won't even listen to me at this point.
I think she took the information and what she said it, and you can tell she had a flicker of understanding, like what you're talking about, and a little bit of doubt. But I think she immediately slapped the thought out of her head and was like, I can't even fathom, think about the fact that I could have maybe made this mistake. There's
such a crazy mistake to
me.
It
didn't happen. It just, nope, we can't go back. It is what it is. It's too late. It's inevitable. And I think that's why she says that right after.
Yeah.
She's not only speaking about the war.
If she could change it, say if she was in control.
Yeah.
Do you think that she would change it?
I think she would do whatever was easiest
and
more comfortable.
Damn.
And whatever would keep her at minimum where she's at, if not give her. Because honestly, I don't think the leverage she wants is hers. I think it's always Otto's. It's always his agenda.
That's why I don't know if like she would be prepared to go to war like this if she didn't feel as if she was justified. But at this point, and I think they highlight that in the small council meeting, she doesn't really have that much of a voice.
No.
She has like a position in title. I mean, she has a little bit more leverage than title only, but I mean, yeah, she's damn near there. Here, so Michael, Kristen is okay. Yeah, we got that butt hurt by Rhaenyra. I don't know. I thought Aemon is badass. Yeah, I mean, I personally, and we talked about last week, I think Aemon is probably my favorite character on the green side to this point. And I do think he has the most kind of compelling arc that we're getting to see. And then Michael said, never seen Daemon so shook like that. Yeah, no, that was definitely, it was a cool scene. It was for sure a cool scene. And the only way he could redeem himself from the fact he's about to cry out of his fucking glass eye was he had to show some cock. He had to shock the room. He had to shake the fucking room for a second. I think she went to Alicent directly because the Red Keep is full of traitors and psychopaths, and she thought Alicent would be reasonable. She's not. She is an evil monster. I think it's more complex than that, though, than her just not being reasonable. Or I do think that she didn't go to like the Red Keep or anything like that because, I don't think there's any other partner for peace, if you will. I don't think there's any other person that would have been willing to even hear out the argument. But, so I think that's why she went to Alicent, and Alicent was willing to hear out. But at the end of the day, I mean, I agree with you to a certain degree. I think from just from what I was picking up from the actor's perspective, I feel like, if I'm reading body language and stuff, I feel like it clicked to her though. I feel like she's like, okay, that's a reasonable. That may have been what it was. Yeah, Alicent. Doubt. Yes, doubt. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not like she came to full terms. There was this automatic like understanding. You're completely right, but it did put into doubt, I think. Yeah. What she had done and like the decisions she had made and what she was making them based off of. So it'll be interesting to see where it ends up going forward. And to answer your question, Michael, from earlier, I think that war is inevitable. I don't think there's any going back on it. And I think specifically because of that conversation. That's why I didn't want to fully answer the question at the moment because I knew we were getting to this point where that is essentially, I think, the question that we're coming to at the end of this episode. That was a last-ditch effort for some kind of like undercover kind of peace agreement between two parties that had, these kind of like personal relationships that they were trying to leverage. I mean, it was all out there. really pulling out all the stops, and it didn't work. I don't think there's anybody else over there you can negotiate with. If it was Aemon, for example, if Aegon was killed, I don't think Aemon's stepping up and then going to end that war. I think he's going to want to continue that. And then on the other side, if you have Rhaenyra fall, I think Daemon's picking that up, and he's going to want that war to continue. So there's just the people that want peace. The only ones were Rhaenyra, and then maybe Alicent would have been interested in it at some point. Who knows? But the problem is, I don't think we got past the first step even, which then I still even question, would the terms of peace been acceptable on either side, even for Alicent and even for Rhaenyra? So maybe Alicent and Rhaenyra, they might have had enough heart to come to the table and possibly negotiate some kind of peace. But would the terms have ever been something they could agree with? Could Rhaenyra ever, I think the question more is Alicent. Would Alicent ever have been willing to let go of the claim that she had already staked for Aegon? I don't know if she would have after the fact. So if that would have been part of the agreement, which that would have had to have been part of the discussion, somebody would have had to have, stepped down and allowed the other one to rule. I don't think either of these ladies would have been willing to do that either. So I kind of feel like
option if Aegon were killed, like we were talking about in that theory, or dies or whatever, he would be succeeded by his nephew, and that is Rhaenyra's son.
Oh wow, there you go. It's all fucked up.
So she would end up.
They're not doing that
right where Alicent.
They're not doing that. They'll figure something else out. It'll be like Cersei. Remember, Cersei took over for a little bit after.
It would probably be Alicent.
After Tommen died. That's crazy. But they do have. Yeah, I mean, there would be no other son because they killed Aegon's son, and now there's just a daughter there. Yeah, craziness. Well, guys, it was awesome getting here to chop it up. Hear your guys' opinion on the episode for this week. And we will be back again next week doing it for the rest of the season, obviously. There might be a few other shows that I even try to work this in with. It's just right now we're trying not to stream too much because we had an issue with YouTube and we just weren't really getting pushed the way that we were initially. So we wanted to take kind of a step back and hopefully reset some of the algorithm there so they stop fucking with us. Because we just try to keep it too real on the stream and just bring it to you real and authentic every time. I want to thank producer Ken. Michael, be prepared to hear her whenever she's available, or anybody out there that wants to get on here and share their opinions and chop it up with us. Be prepared to hear some other people on here. And I'll have you guys could call in as well. I'd love to have you guys call in and chop it up with me. That'd be dope. Michael, I appreciate you for tapping in with me 2 weeks in a row, man. And that's it. We'll be back with it again. Can let people say, tell them goodbye. Have a great, week.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. I can't wait to hit you up hopefully next week.
Yeah, there you go. Do it again. All right, guys. Jay the Spades, Michael, be good. Thank you, everybody. Subscribe. Share with your friends that watch House of the Dragon. Singular dragon. We're getting there. There's a lot of dragons right now, but we're getting to the singular part.